So as some of you might know, we're in the process of wrapping up a smallish NSF project. Sean Ahern of Hunter College, Brandon Plew at BYU, myself at SDSU, and Mike Demers at New Mexico State. And I guess I was asked to sort of link this to the Cyber GIS effort. And so very quick, this introduction, for those of you who are not familiar with it, its main goal really in its development in the late 90s and early 2000s was to serve as a resource for courses and curriculum planning, broad educational purposes, perhaps also a resource for HR professionals. And it's hierarchically organized and came as a printed document. Now, our goal was to lay conceptual and technological foundations for the further evolution of the body of knowledge. And it turns out what we realized in the process was really that it provides the foundation for a reference system into which any artifact produced and consumed by any of the actors in the course of their activities can be represented. So all of you are actors, all your students, your bosses, the people who work for you, every end user, every artifact, every textbook. That's not my problem.
Yeah, just say exit meeting, exit, not troubleshoot.
I said, okay.
Yeah, you hit troubleshoot. That's okay. Let's go back.
No, I hit exit meeting.
No, you hit troubleshoot. That's okay. Where's lightning? Okay, keep going.
Now I'm completely off. All right. Suddenly I might confuse GIS with gastrointestinal system.
No.
All right. And so any textbook, software documentation, job ad would be an artifact. And there are these activities that we're engaged in that link these. And the problem is we have all these walls between them, what researchers do, what end users need. And I want to break those down by projecting them into the same reference system through tagging them with that reference system. And it turns out the body of knowledge provides the basis for such a reference system. And what we've done in this project is to basically turn it into an ontology stored in these relationship between the concepts in a triple store, and then expose them to a bunch of web services. And among those web services, for example, is a topic inference engine. And as well, there are visualization services or applications. This BOCVIS visualization application ingests something that the ontology engine spits out and then uses the topic reference, in this case, to look for how well remote sensing is represented. And it turns out remote sensing is actually there, despite to what some critics of the BOK have said, that it would be absent, or no, it's there. It's just not a top-level knowledge area. But there's plenty of it there. Oh, that's nice.
All right, Andrew. So I'm going to just go back to here and go. Okay, we good?
We good. We good. All right. So now the question is, well, how does CyberGIS relate to that? Well, there are converging interests, it turns out. So CyberGIS needs to clarify its ontological position vis-a-vis the rest of the GIS&T domain. And it has to clarify what its own core conceptual structures and contributions are. And that was what my question yesterday was about, to get to that while keeping in mind the outside connections as well, but to separate between the two. And meanwhile, the GIS&T body of knowledge needs to reflect the evolution of the domain, including, and I see CyberGIS as a natural evolution of the domain that is probably not very well reflected right now, because the body of knowledge reflects the state of the discipline as of the late 1990s, early 2000s. So what do we do? Well, one way forward is wikification. So we have this interface right now up. You can all create your own account. You go to gistboc.org, gistboc.org, and there are links to some of these applications. And so you can assert new concepts. You could assert that a concept shouldn't exist. You could score these assertions. You could say, I want to move this and assert a new relationship, maybe of existing or new concepts, and so forth. Now, how would you use this? How would you deploy that for the purposes of CyberGIS BOK? CyberGIS and its concept. So here are 4 options, of which I would probably suggest the 4th, of course. You never suggest the worst last. So the first one would be we give you an empty Bog Wiki shell, and you populate it with your concepts and the relationships among these concepts. It would be simple, it would be clear, and it would be completely insular. The second would be to start with the Bog Wiki and see where CyberGIS fits in there, insert, link, interlink, crosslink. It's complex, messy, but integrated, but perhaps too complex and too messy, since you want to clarify your own subdomain first. That's one of the purposes of that exercise. You could start with A, finish it, and then insert it, but that might mean that there is lack of coherence relative to what the domain already contains. So I would suggest option B, where you start from a shell, get an idea of what are the core concepts and where might be cross-linkages, and then you move on to inserting and editing BOK1 towards this BOK2 evolution. The second approach is knowledge mining, which basically means that you do a broad survey of domain artifacts computationally. You delineate then through maybe a predictive classifier which ones of these would reasonably be seen as CyberGIS artifacts, perhaps along a range of probabilities. And then you simultaneously represent and model internal and external positioning vis-a-vis the rest of the domain, and what's important, vis-a-vis other domains as well, whose artifacts, so these border regions, would have to be contained as well, computer science and so forth. Okay, so let's do that. Well, no, but let's do some of that. So I took the background papers, and I took the title, abstracts, keywords, and I also took this morning 4 a.m. I got up and I went and took the current publications, the recent publications from this project since 2010 approximately. Went on the Web of Science. Now, unfortunately, the Web of Science always is a little behind, so I only found about a quarter of the papers, but that matched nicely the number of publications in the background. And got the title, abstracts, and keywords of those, and I'm going to project them into what is currently the knowledge reference system, which is BOK1. And when you do that, so when I first started out this, and some of you have seen this before, I expected your effort, as far as even the background is concerned, to end up in geocomputation. It turns out it's not. So the background papers all fall into the analytical methods domain. And if you look at what you've actually been doing, the kinds of things you've been working, the problem set you've been addressing were in fact some very basic analytical methods. Now it turns out that matches very well a completely different technique. I'm using a topic model here. I infer that in the sum of the background papers, in fact, analytical methods has the strongest match. Except now you can see sort of the falling off, and data manipulation apparently isn't one of the, at least as reflected in BOK1, wasn't one of the concerns of those background papers. Now what we can do is we can take the current publications and perform something that you might call knowledge algebra, or I call it knowledge algebra, by subtracting them. And so now in red you have areas where the background papers are stronger vis-a-vis BOK1, and in blue where the new actual publications from the project are stronger. And I'm happy to see that indeed you're moving towards geocomputation. So the techniques you're using and the things you're publishing about, if you had to relay it to the state of GI science 10 years ago, it's geocomputation. And so you can see now how you could maybe not judge progress, but track change. And as Sean was saying yesterday, really the goal is to combine these two efforts. The wikification, which really, if you think about that, is about internal knowledge of actors being externalized. And data mining or knowledge mining, which is about grabbing things where knowledge is already externalized, artifacts that already hold knowledge laid bare, so to speak, by people producing through their various activities. And we are now engaged in efforts to do this. And here you can find out more about our Body of Knowledge project, which again, lead PI was Sean Ahern at Hunter College.
Great, thank you very much.